From Tokyo to London, across the globe, respecting the craft, we're in the know. No gimmicks or fakes, just pure passion and skill. The best talents from every wrestling hill. We dive deep into the stories behind the ring. Respecting the craft, making the fans sing. Respect the craft, making the fans sing. Respect the craft, respect the fight. We bring the best, we can't hide. Respect the craft, making the fans sing. Respect the craft, respect the fight. We bring the best, we can't hide. We dive deep into the stories behind the ring. Respect the craft, making the fans sing. Respect the craft, respect the fight. We bring the best.
And we are live. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another edition of Respect the Craft. This is episode number 256, and I have the complete honor here of being joined by truly an innovator, one of the best minds in this game. He is a true legend, one of the minds behind the Quest Constant Wrestling. He is one of, if not the greatest JAPW light heavyweight champion. We have Archadia in the building. What's going on, brother? Good evening.
We got to be careful with that because the two before me, well, actually, two of the three before me were Jushin Thunder Liger and Kenny Omega. So we got to be careful with the.
Till I have them on the podcast, we're gonna go with the greatest light heavyweight champion here, Archadia.
Oh my
Good
God.
evening, sir. Again, it is a pleasure. It has been a
Thank you.
long time coming here, so I'm glad we could have you on the podcast here.
It's absolutely an honor to be here.
But definitely, again, before I get into everything, because we do have a lot I want to discuss with you, I have to ask you the question I ask everyone that comes on. You heard the name of the show. It's called Respect the Craft. So for you, when you hear that term, though, the craft, what does that mean to you?
So it's funny because I've been known to have conversations about this with people, especially what I think about what the craft is, and honestly, I've kind of boiled it down to it's the art that the wrestler themselves wants to put out into the world. I know that we put a lot of stock, and I hope I don't catch a lot of crap for this. We put a lot of stock in, what the fans want to see and what they pay their money to see. But for me, wrestling is such an art form that we have to rely on the wrestlers themselves to be putting the art that they believe in out into the world. And I think that's where the craft comes from. It's the art, it's the art that the wrestler wants to be known for and to be putting out there in the world.
No, that's perfect. And again, it's why I say this is why the name of the show here is Respect the Craft, because it should be that respect for it. It should be, especially of everything. But here we go. We have Yo-Yo in the chat. Look at that. What's going on? What's going on, Yo-Yo? What's going on?
One of my faves.
But as we continue here, again, one of the main reasons we are here as well is to discuss all things the Quest and all things Constant Wrestling. So I have to start with this, with the questioning of, as we look at our two sides here, as we have that blue pod, we have the red pod here, and I have to bring it up, the selection process. How is that for you, picking the amazing first roster here so far that features a good friend of mine, Anthony Gangone, Matt Vertigo. We have Drake Chambers there, Pat Dynamite, Azrael, and the Bad Apple himself, Matt McIntosh. So how was that process in choosing and just the process of creating the quest here?
So it's not just me. I'm the co-creator with TJ Blade. He wrestles along the East Coast as TJ Blade, and we've been good friends for a while. And we kind of had this idea of trying to statistically um, like break down what happens in the ring, and kind of give wrestlers a rating based on how they're performing efficiently in the ring. So it's not just about your wins and losses. You know, everybody watches sports, everybody watches baseball or hockey or football or basketball, and you see these analytics, these what are the words? I can't think of the word now, of course, because I'm on the spot. These it's an analytic game
Gotcha.
now. So like if you're watching baseball, like exit velo and trajectory
Of
and
course, yeah.
how it leaves the bat, you know, and what really got I'm a big hockey fan, so what gave me the idea when we watch hockey or when I watch hockey is possession numbers, right? They always talk about, you know, what's the expected goal rate. So it's not really what you're scoring, but if you keep going on the same path, then you have an expected rate at which you should be scoring. So it's
Gotcha.
just a mathematical formula to determine how efficient you are on the ice, right? So for
Gotcha.
me, when I watch wrestling, I'm trying to figure out which wrestlers mathematically are the most efficient in the ring, and that's based on their control time in the ring. So how much time during the match they're controlling the action, the levels of the moves or their offense that's being used. So level one offense would be something like a punch or a kick or a chop, right?
Okay, yeah, I did want to ask that, especially when I saw the breakdown, especially with the first match between Drake and Ann. It was like, okay, that breakdown. It's interesting to see the numbers and see that, but I'm like, how'd you guys come up with that science of each level and all that? Which again, I commend you and TJ for putting that mindset because I'm like, that is a interesting way to break down a wrestling match. So
Yeah, so we did release some um, social media stuff that did explain most of it, but we're no longer kind of traveling that down that path. Or the partners that we had originally, I mean, this has been a long process. Like I've had this idea for 5 or 6 years. You know, I've called people 5 years ago and explained this to them, and they were like, "Oh yeah, it's a good idea. You should do it." And I just never got it done.
yeah,
And then 3 years ago, we actually started filming it, and then it just took a very long time with things that happened in my life, things that happened in TJ's life, things that happened professionally that we just didn't have any control over, because we were depending on a lot of other people to allow us to you know go with our vision. That when you depend on so many people, you don't really have the ability to control uh what happens. And honestly, I kind of dropped the ball a few times just on, you know, again, having stuff in my own life that happened and not being able to get it done. But we did release some social media content that explained it all, and then we kind of deleted it because we didn't go in that direction with the same host or the same company that we were. Like originally we had a deal with IWTV. We were gonna release it on that, and then it just took so long for us to put it together that they kind of, you know, stopped answering emails and
got
texts.
you. No,
So
again, it's understandable, especially I want to say a lot of this was done in the midst of still, unfortunately, the pandemic era as well. So it's
it was just after.
okay.
So the our first match was filmed, I believe, in May of 2021.
Okay, so you're still like right, yeah, still at that cusp, if anything, of just
Right, like I think
yeah.
it was just coming out of it.
Okay, got you.
It was an outdoor show. I mean, you watched episode
Mhm.
one. That was the first match we filmed. So that yeah, so it was coming right outside of the pandemic.
Yeah,
So we filmed back to back for um, pretty quickly, and then um, you know, Drake Chambers got hurt, and then someone else got hurt, and then we were thinking about replacing people, and then by the time we thought about replacing people, Drake Chambers was healthy again, so we kind of went backwards again. So there was a lot of back and forth that we didn't control, and because we didn't film it all at the same time, that's kind of why it took so long to finally put it all together.
Got you. No, and again, it's one of those where now we get to see the full process here. We get to see everything all together. And again, I can't wait to see how the culmination goes. Especially, I do have to ask you, when you look at now the talent you have in there, even compared to that first match as we saw this past weekend of Anthony Gangone and Drake Chambers, just seeing how the evolution of the competitors are now. Like, I can imagine even through those tapings, seeing just the differences of competitors. Like
Yeah.
Anthony Gangone at that time, I want to say it was a little more of a one above all, if you will. Now more of Dr. Sleep. You have Pat Dynamite, who at the time I want to say was still through his young, dumb, and broke Ellis Taylor days. So how
Yep.
has that been for you, seeing that evolution of your performers now a part of the quest here?
Well, so when we approached the wrestlers that we did, they were all in different stages than they are in now. Two of them that we use don't even wrestle anymore. So that's kind of we're letting a secret out of the bag. But yeah, it's been fun. It's kind of been interesting to see how everyone's changed over the time. I mean, Gangone, I think, is always reinventing himself. Um, Pat Dynamite used to wrestle as Ellis Taylor, and he was doing the Blood Diamond kind of thing. And I don't think he hasn't really like his style hasn't really changed much.
No, definitely not. I feel like now, if anything, with Pat, how I've seen it, is more of just letting now himself be known. The style is still very the same, but just the aesthetic of it all, the presentation, if you will, is definitely just him now going his flow, but still same style in there, same training. Especially being under the tutelage of Jimmy Ray for so long, you see those little notes and everything, and yeah.
Right. And like, so guys like Vertigo, who had, and if I don't know if nobody knows who he is, I'm glad that the quest is able to kind of shine some light on him, because he's been one of those guys that has been underutilized and underused and hasn't really been shown really in a great public eye yet. And hopefully this will give him some sort of, and I've messaged these guys for, of course, for like 3 years, and part of it, back to your original question when you first asked me, like, how did you get these guys? Why? How did you get to these guys? It's kind of an excuse to be around the guys that I enjoy being around a lot. I don't want to pull the curtain open too much, but the guys that you spend time with when you're in the business and you become friends with, for a guy like me who hasn't been wrestling for, like, I've been outside of wrestling for a while and then back and forth. The guys that you keep in touch with, those are true friends and not just wrestling friends. And all 6 of these guys are guys that I have kind of kept in contact with in different aspects. Like Pat Dynamite is someone that as a younger guy, I've always kind of just watched from the older guy perspective of anything that I can kind of give him, I will. Gangone and McIntosh are more like peers on the same level, where we've all kind of been there for a very long time and kind of just support each other. And Vertigo is a guy that, being that UWA Elite, it was somewhere where I started, and he is there. I kind of love just being around him and having him on. And the same thing with Chambers is that, if for anyone who was heavy into the backyard wrestling scene, watching backyard wrestling in the mid to late 2000s, would know that Drake Chambers has been around for a very long time. I think he made his pro debut in like 2009 or something. He was like 18 years old. And he never had the moment that I think he deserved to have. So again, it's all different reasons specific to the person, but each of them is just someone that I believe in.
Gotcha. No, it's a great reasoning too, just to be able to.
A very short answer is I believe in them.
Hey, and it's a great one right there because again, it's perfect to see why you get to see that different styles in there. You get to see the different just backgrounds, different ways of getting into it, but it works out to create definitely an amazing just bracket of possible matches, outcomes, and all that good stuff.
Right. And the
Even
one that
again,
the one that I didn't mention is the one that I probably have the most history with. Uh, ever since I broke into JAP and it was AWA then, now it's Ace. As I've probably been in the ring with Azrael more than anyone else that I've ever been in the ring with. There's two people actually. It's Azrael and Grim Reaper are the two that I've been in the ring with the most.
there you go. And no, and that one was one of those that it's like it makes sense, especially again knowing your guys' careers. It's like that makes sense to have him involved in this and to see what could possibly happen next.
Yeah, and he's
Including-
better, and he's better now than he ever has been. He's unbelievable. Like I can't even begin to imagine the longevity of being relevant in an active way like the way he has, and he's just athletically better than I've ever seen him, and he dominate like he's just if Azrael is on a show or on a card and you're there, just consider yourself blessed to be there to watch it happen because he is and I know that maybe this might be the theme of the quest that it's just underappreciated people,
Yeah.
but Azrael is number one most underappreciated person in at least independent wrestling.
Gotcha. No, again, and I like that because it's giving that showcase to talent that may unfortunately not get that light on them and get more of that appreciation and true pun intended here respect for the craft.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
as we go into this though, because again, the original motto was for the quest here, but now there's been the constant wrestling. Can you tell us a little bit more about what that is and what we could look forward to in the future for constant wrestling?
Right. So it all goes back to I've always had a vision of professional wrestling and that I kind of look at it differently, I feel like, than some other people. Um, and the people that I like and enjoy watching, I want to selfishly continue to watch them wrestle.
Gotcha.
It's kind of like having a group of friends and you invite them to your birthday party. It's the only time that specific group of people are all there at the same time. Like you can go here to this party, you might see one or two of them. You might go here, you see one or two of them. But when it's your party, they're all there, right? So and that's selfishly probably why I want to start my own promotion is just to hang out with the people that I want to hang out with the most.
Ooh, so are we seeing that here? This is what you're going to get to see in the coming weeks on YouTube. Will be the I guess the prelogue to what will be constant wrestling.
Right. So when we developed the quest, it was just going to be standalone by itself. It wasn't a promotion. It was just kind of like this 7-episode show that we wanted to create that we believed in. And then we started thinking, well, what do we do with it? And where do we go from here? And we started thinking that if we did want to run live shows, we couldn't run live shows as like the quest because the quest is kind of its own niche and its own thing. And we don't want people to feel like if we do a live version of it, that they're going to have to know like the backstory of the stat thing. And so constant wrestling is its own thing.
I got you.
That is the parent company now of the quest.
Okay, understood. No, and that's definitely something I wanted to clear up here because when I saw constant wrestling, I'm like, okay, is this something that it's almost like powered by? Is it something completely different? But no, that's awesome to hear.
Right. So yeah,
definitely looking forward to that now.
It's basically the idea there is we wanted to have something larger than the quest so that if we wanted to branch off and do live shows, that we had that ability to do that. And Ray, I wanted to take this opportunity for you to be the first one publicly to know that we already have a date and a venue for our first constant pro wrestling show.
Ooh. Look at that.
And we have some members of the roster that I could if you want to know the information, I did tell TJ Blade that I was going to use this opportunity to announce that what the date was and where it was.
All that.
So if
Zoji.
hey, Buffa, hey, yo.
Hey, look at that. We got Buffa in the building. What's going on? What's going on? Let's
Yeah,
make sure we show.
he's definitely a part of my long past. So anyway, so if you don't mind, I would like to take this
No,
opportunity.
definitely. Let's give you the big screen here and let the
Whoa.
people know where they can what to
So,
expect from constant wrestling here.
So July 27th. I've always wanted to run my own show, and I thought a good way to do it was to perhaps run it in my own hometown. And if you are a fan of Jersey All Pro Wrestling, you know that where I grew up and this area is something that I hold dear, and that good wrestling should be very close to home. So on July 27th, Constant Pro Wrestling will make its debut at Sayreville War Memorial High School at 7 p.m. at 820 Washington Road, Parlin, New Jersey.
There you go. So huge announcement right there. And a little too perfect. The week right after my birthday. Huh. Look at that.
I like that.
Look at that. But so I can only imagine, especially with who we're talking about here. I want to say we're going to see possibly some familiar faces on that first card.
So I will say that I will announce right now
Yes.
that whoever does end up winning the quest will absolutely have a prime position in the first show that we are running. So whoever that is, I mean, I guess we'll figure it out in 6 weeks.
There you go. There's still a lot of time. Again, we are still only on May 10th, so definitely stay tuned. And again, this is why you have to be following the quest and all things constant wrestling. But there we go. We got Buffa Ayo saying he misses you, and the congratulations are in order. Which again, it truly is. Congratulations, and can't wait to see what continues here with constant.
Yeah, I'm really excited.
So,
I'm really excited about it.
No, that's awesome to hear. And again, it's something that seeing the love from people, getting to see how they're interested in the quest. We've talked about it off air. Just I enjoyed the different side of the breakdown. This is why when I did the promo for this, and I was like, truly just seeing your mindset on this, and I can imagine TJ's as well, of just how you guys are breaking this down, truly adding that sport feel that I feel like sometimes it really is missing in wrestling. Like
Well,
that's why I call it a craft. It's a
I
different.
wanted to make sure it didn't lose the effect of professional wrestling. And I think,
Of course,
having guys like Anthony Gangone and Azrael will keep us grounded enough that we don't stray too far from the original goal of professional wrestling. You don't want to take the professional wrestling out of it and just strictly say, all right, well, we're going to be, analytics based or stats based. Like, pro wrestling has to be what it is
of course, at the forefront of it, basically. But having that element though of just adding a different side to it, that I feel like it's going to set you guys aside of just it being its own commodity here, where you still have the deeper meaning that core is going to be professional wrestling, but just maybe presented in a different way that might have not been thought prior to this here.
Right. And none of these guys knew beforehand that this was our goal. So we didn't want to influence the way that they were wrestling their matches. So we didn't tell them that they were being judged on their analytics, and we didn't tell them. So we didn't tell them until the tournament when we said, all right, well, these are, when the tournament comes, we'll let you know like how you get in. We didn't want to influence anything at first. I mean, now the cat's out of the bag. So if there is a season 2 of the quest, then the guys will kind of,
by then now it's like, well, now I know, let me make sure I do this and try to get one of these in there, which I do have to ask that. How was that once again, the tournament is in session? And again, I don't want any, I guess the best way to not spoil anything, but how was that seeing with them not knowing it? How was that seeing what certain things were done? How was that breakdown for you seeing, like, even let's say for match number 1, again, we have the scores here, how that breakdown was. How is that for you seeing Ant and Chambers in there and just how they performed in that ring?
I was not surprised. And I think I mentioned it. And I'm so glad, because another thing that TJ Blade brings to the table is knowing you know, who we can use and what we can do in certain situations. And he suggested, I'm not sure if you're familiar, he suggested Wade Kruger as the co-host or the co-commentator of the Quest, because of how much he brings to it, and he's an avid sports fan, you know, and for him it's kind of a perfect fit. And like I said, I don't know if you're familiar with Wade Kruger at all.
One half of the stepdads, correct? If I'm
Yes.
not mistaken. Yep.
Yep, he's one half of the stepdads. He was unbelievable, and I think that itself, when we bounce these ideas off each other, we talked about, you know, guys like Anthony Gangone, and it kind of fits his style. You know what I mean? Like if you've ever watched an Anthony Gangone match, you know that he has that smothering offensive attack where, you know, he's trying to wear down his opponent. You know, I felt it myself when I've been in the ring with him. You know, we did a 3-match series for Ace Championship Wrestling years ago, and you know that's when we first met each other, and I kind of fell in love with the art form that he portrays in the ring, and I think that's, I mean, it might even be, you know, witnessing a guy like Anthony Gangone that made me come up with the idea at all, and how, you know, dominating he is in the ring. And then sometimes, you know, he'll gas out, or he'll be too focused on dominating the middle part of the match. And then that's what kind of leads to the other guy having the upper hand at the end. And I wanted to kind of analyze why that happens.
Got you.
And that's where we got the ideas, is this, you know, what gives someone the ability to, or what gives someone the advantage to win a match, or why, like, is there something statistically that we can prove, you know, and to go back, like, you know, with hockey, they have like this goals above expected. There's an expected line that you should be hitting based on your offense. And same thing with that. Like, can we come up with a line where if you control the match this much and you throw these many moves or these level of moves, should you be expected to win? And that's kind of, you know, what we tried to do.
Got you. No, and again, it's definitely, like I said, what, as we spoke before, an interesting way to break that down, an interesting way to look at it. I'm looking forward to see how that happens this weekend, as well as the second match happening will be Pat Dynamite going head to head with, again, that veteran Azrael, and that's an interesting pairing right there, because you're seeing matches where it's that conflict of styles, especially between those two. You have that Pat Dynamite being a student of the game. You have Azrael, who's been in this, has that tenure in there. So it's going to be interesting to see how their stats come out of this contest here this weekend.
Yeah, and I think anyone who knows Azrael is going to know what he brings to the table and how he operates. You know, so I think going into it, I, as someone who has spent my entire professional career watching Azrael wrestle, kind of knew, you know, with those younger guys that they might not even be ready for a guy like him. Just because with Azrael, it's just all volume. He's just constantly hitting and constantly attacking and constantly doing it. So I think we knew that going into it, that he was going to be a heavy favorite when it came to statistics. And it's interesting, definitely, to see how the younger guys respond to that.
Got you. And now I think now, again, that we've set that tone, we now know Constant Wrestling will be presenting your very first show this coming July. Now, this is the question I feel like a lot of people are going to want to know. So again, if you'd like to answer, if not, could we ever see Archadia make his way back into the ring for one of these shows?
I mean, not for one of these shows. I feel like I wouldn't close the doors. I mean, I'm 40 years old, right? Yeah. So the time is quickly ticking to the point where, I mean, I feel it now, you know,
of course,
I get outside the house and, you know, do some athletic things, and I'm definitely not the human I was, you know, 10, 15 years ago. And that's not to say that I can't continue to do the things I want to do. It's just, I've always been a big believer of, when I stop being able to do the things that made me, then I don't want to put a C or D version of myself,
of course,
out there. And just like product wise, I don't want to do that. And as far as like being a promoter and also being a wrestler on the show, I've just never believed in it. First of all, I don't think I can handle it. There's just so much to do
yeah,
as the promoter. And, you know, I don't have a lot of help. I have been able to um, come to an agreement with Titan Enterprises
Okay.
as far as kind of a working relationship where they're going to help us out a lot, and I could not have done this without Titan. Um, but it's still way too much, and I don't like. I did, and not to say that people who do it are wrong. It's just for me, I don't feel like it's right to run a show and also be a character on the show. Like I
Okay.
just don't,
Gotcha.
it's just not something I was ever interested in.
Got you. No, and again, it's one of those where I feel like it's gonna come into conversation eventually with this. So I definitely wanted to get that out of the way here, just so people can know. Again, especially with how much of a breakdown this is and how much you guys are putting into the analytical side of all this while creating this presentation. I can imagine again the stress level that comes with the planning for this is
Well,
going to be at a whole all time high here.
I think we're still going to use the analytics for constant wrestling. They're just
Yeah,
not going to be the driving factor behind it.
of
Like, so
course.
the
Of course.
the quest is all driven by the stats, but we still want to have that presentation of the stat game when
Okay,
it comes to constant wrestling. It's just not going to be the driving factor of it.
understood.
Maybe we'll use matches on our constant wrestling shows to maybe prepare ourselves for a season two.
Okay.
But again, I don't. I want to make sure that people don't feel like they need to be invested in like that stat version of
Got
what
you.
we're doing to have to enjoy the shows.
Of course, of course. Which again, I know season one is still very young into it, but and again, if you don't want to answer, that's okay as well. But if we could go into that mindset of, do you have any names that you could think of that could possibly be a part of a season two? Maybe a certain Cambodian dragon we saw in the chat earlier in this conversation.
Well, yeah, I mean, when it comes to people I believe in,
Yeah,
I would definitely say that Yoya is one of those guys that I believe in. It's all about like, and you know, we just talked about season one taking so long to put together. It's got to be that perfect storm of being able to fit. Like there were guys that I had asked and girls that I had asked for season one that the timing just didn't fit, and because there are people like a Brandon Kirk, like a Steve Scott, like a KTB that I had asked to be a part of it, and just the timing didn't fit. So
no, no. Again, it's understandable, especially schedules, just real life issues, all of that comes into play. And especially doing something like this that it wasn't seen at that point to now
right,
see maybe
and
the
we and
structure
we
being different as well. We could
and
see that.
we had to beg other promotions to allow, because we filmed all the only, I mean, like I said, I don't know how in like, because it's all filmed already and I don't want to like make it
But yeah,
sound
we definitely don't want to give too
right,
much out of the
but the only there was only one match on the entire run of the series that was filmed during a show. The rest of them were all filmed at pre-shows.
gotcha.
So anyone who had helped us out, we just kind of asked for, maybe two matches or a match on their pre-show, and we kind of did it that way. Titan Wrestling, UWA Elite, Northern Fed of Wrestling, and we did, Sean Henderson Presents. Like I called in every favor that I could think of, and I had actually reached out to Project Codename and we were trying to get it to work. So anyone that I could reach out to as a favor to me to do it, and the good news is that I feel like I actually got a lot of joy out of hearing how willing people were to help. And I think it made me feel good because it was kind of um, it made me feel like I had done something right along the way, that people were so willing to help me out. You know,
I know, and I could definitely see why. Again, like I said, not just because you're on the show with me, but again, when Arcadia asked for a favor, it's like, how could you not? Like, it's
well,
Arcadia. Like,
I wouldn't no. Well, and I'm not gonna say that you're wrong, because I don't want to like go against what you're saying, but I don't think it has to do with anything name value wise, because honestly, like at this point, 15 years removed from anything relevant that I've ever done, I think more of it is just, I hope that it speaks to what kind of person I am.
No, that as well. And I think
Right.
I my apologies if the not just saying because of the wrestler that you were, but
Right.
just of who you are. Again, it's one of those where especially getting to see both sides of that, you get to see just even again when Arcadia the person asks for a favor as well. It's one of those where it's like again, I think you've earned more and you've done so much that again for the business itself that it's like how could you not want to be able to help something that again is shedding that light on that next generation as well. So if
Yeah.
that makes a little more a little more sense here when it comes
No, it
to
does, and I appreciate that.
no. So it's definitely one of those that again, it's awesome to see it. Here we go. We got SP Anderson in the chat. What's going on, brother? There you go. Putting over Arcadia here, saying the goodest brother. There you go.
I
There
love him.
you go.
I love him. He,
Shout out
he's
to
he's the goodest brother.
but no, again, it's awesome to see. And again, guys, this is why if you haven't already, make sure you are following all things the quest and constant wrestling on social media there so you stay up to date, so you can stay up to date with all the upcoming matches, all the announcements, especially with constant wrestling, as Arcadia announced earlier in the episode here that July 27th will be that very first show. So stay tuned to that because you're definitely going to want to see what that is going to be. But again, I want to get into a little bit of this because like I talked about, again, just that innovating mind, just that a true legend of the business for you now, getting to see how much of that innovation has inspired others. How has that been for you, getting to see that talent? Like you said, you've had that bond with a lot of people that I feel like it's one of those where even you see the likes of even Jordan Oliver has those little touches that it's like you can see the things that he's studied from a man like yourself.
Yeah, and I don't know how much of it is me at all, as much as it's just, like Jordan is really good, and he decided to throw an old man a bone by naming a move after me. But you could see it from the beginning. When I first met Jordan, I was in the ring getting ready for a show, and him and I always call him Kid Christian, even though his name's Casey Navarro. They were standing on the outside of the ring getting ready, and I called them in, and we kind of just worked a little bit, and I just knew from the beginning, Casey kind of got a lot of the buzz quicker between the two of them. And I don't know if a lot of people know that they kind of started out at a similar time and kind of together. Um, but Jordan didn't really get the buzz that Casey got until much later.
Yeah.
And, Jordan was it was just all grind, and it was not giving up, and it was fighting for every inch, and people bad mouthing how skinny he was or how lanky he was and how awkward he was, and all, and I will never there will never be another human being on this planet that will be able to earn the respect that I have for Jordan Oliver. If there is anything in my life that I could ever do for that kid, I would drop everything to do it, because it's just a true testament to what hard work and belief in yourself can do, because he is a self-made, and a lot of people talk a big game about being self-made, but Jordan Oliver is 100% talked himself into getting onto shows and then backed it up by just being, creative and in reinventing himself. And there hasn't been a match that I've seen him wrestle where he hasn't integrated some new version of himself or new style of himself. He never does the same thing over again. Like it's just an amazing thing to watch. And I just cannot say enough good things about Jordan.
No, definitely. And again, it's one of those we're seeing just his evolution now. We talked about it earlier with Pat. We talked it earlier with Ant. And it's one of those that Jordan has just, again, he's grown into this whole new competitor. That's one of those where, again, seeing that growth, I think it was always there. It was just one of those of just evolving with the times and evolving with
Yeah,
the
and
business.
he was young. He
Yeah.
started really young, and part of getting better is also just how young he was, and how young you're still way too young to even understand the grand parts of
Yeah.
what we do. And I think he did grasp it at an early age, and he was around the right people, you know.
And that's one of those things when, like you talked about with him and Casey as well. And it's always crazy because I look at it and I want to say a year or two with me, the same around age gap, and seeing again who they've took under and who we're all learning under. It's like it shows again learning and listening to the right people. It,
Yeah.
it, it pushes you in that right way.
Yep.
So that's why I say it's always a pleasure to be able to talk to amazing people like yourself because it does help. It does help with this whole insane craft that we're a part of here.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, and to you, like, the fact that you're here, pushing what you push and how you push it, and the way that you present the things that you present are, only helpful to the people like me who respect the business in a certain way. And immediately just seeing the name that you chose, when you first chose it, without even knowing you as a person, I knew that it was something that I was going to like and want to be a part of.
No, I thank you. And again, that's why, especially with this, I was like, let's see, because again, I never want to bother anyone at times, and I'm just like, let's see, especially because I was big into seeing what the quest was going to be, with conversations with Ant as well. I was like, I like the concept, but like the idea, and again, more that we spoke on it as well. I was like, hey, if you ever want to come on, I'd love to do the
Yeah.
full breakdown here. So I was glad that we could finally
And
make this happen as well.
I'm always willing to have conversations about not just, the things that I'm involved with, but just wrestling in general, and the people that I believe in.
No, definitely, definitely. And again, I thank you so much for that. And again, we definitely, as we get closer to the first constant wrestling event as well, hopefully we could do a little part 2 and get more into that as well, break down all that for people so they can get ready for that amazing event. Especially by then as well, we will start to find out a little more of who could possibly be making that prize spot with the results here of the quest. Again, you guys are going to want to stay tuned because we're already at after week 1. You see the rankings right there. You see those standings with Anthony Gangone in that first spot right there. But you never know after this week what could happen. Could we see Pat Dynamite make his way to that 1-2 seed? Could we see that Guardian Angel himself, Azrael, take the spot? You never know what could happen.
Yeah, and just to explain it a little bit more, because I don't
Yep.
know if anyone who's watching or listening doesn't understand the full concept is, so after the round robin, which is 3 guys in each pod, they're all going to wrestle each other. They're all going to get a rating based on their performance against one another. Those 6 guys will have 4 spots to move on to some sort of 4-man tournament, where then it's the winning of the match that gets you to the next round. We're still going to be keeping the stats, but it's not going to be the driving force behind the tournament. The stats themselves is what's qualifying you for the 4-man tournament. Then once you get in, it's winner take all.
Okay, there you go. So that's definitely a little more clarification there. So, but again, I feel like that is still a good look to look at just that breakdown, seeing that. And again, I commend you guys on wanting that breakdown because when I'm listening to him, like, okay, I like this idea, but it's like I'm scratching my head at. So this move is that. This is okay.
Right. I think with a larger budget
Yeah.
and more hands on deck,
Yeah.
it might be easier to maybe explain completely
Definitely.
what it is, but part of it is not wanting to really explain it completely as much as I want to have them kind of understand by watching the match.
No, and I think that's the best way too, because it's one of those where it's easy to just be like, well, this is what it is, but it's one of those where you get invested into it and you start to, before you know it, it's like now it all makes sense.
Right.
And that was that thing with me that it was more of like I wanted to see it firsthand, and seeing that match this weekend, I was like, you know what, seeing this, seeing that, breaking down the match a little more. As I even, funny enough, I like to do that a lot on commentary. I'm very much into the analytical side of it, that it's like, oh, working on this body part and doing this. And it's like, with this, it's like, how it makes sense. Just putting it into that point-based system, it works out.
And hopefully we'll be able to get some graphics during the weeks about where the offense was strategically placed. So is Gangone attacking the head, the neck area, or the arms or the legs? That stuff is also going to kind of break through eventually as part of the quest, because I think that that's again, like you said, an important feature of it.
No, definitely so. Definitely so. And again, that's something that for everyone watching, definitely stay tuned to that. But Arcadia, I don't want to take up too much more of your time here. So, final question I ask everyone that comes on, and that is for you. And again, you could take this in terms of yourself, the quest, constant wrestling. What is the end goal, brother?
The end goal is the same end goal as it is in life, is to make it better than it was when you first got here.
Love it. That works. That is perfect. And again, it fits everything here. But before I let you go, once again, everyone, if you're listening, please make sure you follow this man as well on his social media right there. Follow him on Instagram right there, Arcadia NJ. Follow him on X, Twitter, whatever you want to call it, at Arcadia Burner right there. Follow the quest on Instagram right there, the_quest_wrestling. Follow the quest on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, at the quest_rest. Follow Constant Wrestling as well on Instagram, constant_wrestling, and follow them on X there at Wrestle Constant. Arcadia, thank you so much again for joining me here. Like I said, it's truly been an honor for me, and thank you so much again for coming on and breaking down all things the quest and Constant Wrestling.
Well, Ray, thank you for having me on, but not only that, thank you for just promoting wrestling the way that you do, and from the direction that you do. I do appreciate it, and anyone who I've ever talked to also appreciates you and what you do very much.
No, thank you so much. And again, it's always a pleasure and always an honor to get to speak to you guys. And it's glad to hear kind words, and also that that's being said about me as well. So thank you so much again to everyone watching. Please, again, go support the quest, go support Constant Wrestling. And as always, don't forget to be wise, be genuine, be real, be better people, respect the craft. And we'll see you guys on